Hey everybody, this is Dallas Stone here, and today we're going to be talking about the top 3 things that I learned from going to video game school. So the first thing that was very helpful when I was going to school was getting out of my creative bubble, right? So just a little quick brief history about myself. When I went to the Art Institute of Vancouver, I didn't really have an artistic background. Like I drew here and there, I was kind of just like an average person, like I got a lot of my creativity from playing video games, from watching a lot of movies, and just kind of being exposed to the arts and crafts from other people, right? From entertainment. And so when I was going to the Arts Institute, I didn't really understand what it meant to be super creative, right? Especially when I was like watching half of my class who came from creative backgrounds, or like a 25% of them were really, really talented. And I was like, holy cow, like how am I going to compete to them? Like they're really, really good. So, so that's the one really good thing about being in that type of environment inside of school, is you're surrounded by really talented peers and instructors that kind of help get your creative juices flowing, and I was very fortunate to have some really awesome friends that came from that school that kind of pushed me out of my little bubble and kind of got me thinking creatively. So the second thing that I want to point out that was really handy was instructors that are in the field, right? So being at the Arts Institute, they pretty much only hire instructors that are actually working in the industry, right? So either some of them are at studios right now, or they're freelancing. So that's really amazing. Like you have to, like, I can't even, it's so valuable. And because not only are they teaching you, the craft, right, and what they're doing at work, and they're kind of giving you the insight of this, like how things are supposed to be done, right? So like you can't, like that's just so valuable to be able to have someone when you're having issues or you have questions. You can just go to your instructor and be like, hey, so I don't get this, right? And it's like they understand why. And most instructors are very passionate and they want to help the students actually get into the industry. So for me, I was very, very lucky to have very good instructors who were in the field and was teaching me the ropes. Not only that, right, the instructors are teaching you software. Like for me, I didn't have any experience in Photoshop, right, or Maya, right, or ZBrush, or Unreal Engine. I had like no experience whatsoever before I went to school, right? And so these instructors, they have experience in those fields using that software, so they know all the little tips and tricks, how to do things quickly, how to kind of cut back your time, and they're teaching you how they're using it at work, right? Which is just hands down not something that you can just read on Polycount, or you can read it and you might find some things, but for them to actually teach you like face to face is really amazing. Last but not least, and this is probably the most important out of the 3, is growing your network. And what I mean by that is all these people that are graduating with you, they're either, I'd say 20% of them probably are gonna be in the industry, right? The other 80% might do other things. They might realize that this might not be for them, or they might try for about a year, and then they're unsuccessful, so they move on to different careers, right? So that 20%, they become your friends, right? And they become that connection. So if your friend ends up getting a job at, let's say, Capcom or something like that, right? If you were good friends, you've been working on your portfolio, you guys keep in touch, when Capcom says, hey, we need a junior artist, do you have any recommendations? Your resume might end up being in the consideration pile, right? And then what's awesome is your instructors one day might end up becoming your colleague, right? If your instructor and you have bonded very well, your instructor might be like an art director or an art lead, right, or a senior environment artist. And when again the conversation comes, okay, we need an artist. Do you have any recommendations? That is where the instructors are probably going to be the ones that just have this wealth, not like this pool of talented artists, right? And they're going to be like, okay, so I have a bunch of artists that are really, really talented. Let's interview a few of them. Let's give them an art test, see which one is the strongest, and we'll hire them. So I'll give you guys a really good example of why networking is so important. So for me, when I graduated from the Art Institute in 2008, pretty old now, I got my first job in the industry at an indie studio, and I ended up becoming the art lead after 2 years of being at the studio. And then when the studio, so I'm going to give you guys an example of why networking is so important. Okay, so when I first got my job in the industry, I was at an indie studio, and within 2 weeks into my job, my lead was like, hey, we need another artist, right? Do you know someone else who we can hire that will fit inside this environment, that will fit well with our team, blah blah blah, right? And I said, yeah, I do. And the first person that I recommended right away was one of my best friends at school, and he was an amazing guy. Not only that, he was a hardworking student, and he was talented, right? And so I was like, yeah, I have a guy, right? And so we hired him. And then not only that, 6 months to a year after that, I ended up hiring another one of my peers, who was super talented as well. And then so I hired him. And then 3 years after that, I believe, I hired another one of my peers. So it was just like a network, right? Like, I know this person, they're available, they're out of a job, they're talented, they're hardworking, bring them in. Fast forward 6 years and a half into my career, my instructor, one of my favorite instructors at the Art Institute, tells me, or not, doesn't even tell me, tells another peer of mine that, hey, we have an opening. And so my peer tells me that after him and I have a conversation, and I'm telling him that, I'm looking for a newer challenge, looking to enter a AAA studio, etc., etc. And so he ended up getting me into contact with my instructor, and they ended up giving me an art test, and we both ended up getting hired. And then he's like my art director, right? And so he was my boss. And so again, it's comes down to the networking and why that is so important. So my biggest tip is, your reputation is so important, right? Work well with people, be good to other peers, and your reputation is very important. So work hard. If you guys liked what you saw and liked what you heard, press the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you guys didn't like it, leave it into the comment section. Let me know what you guys, what you disagree with, agree with, what you didn't like about the video, and I'd actually love to hear what your thoughts are. What are your top 3 things if you're now an alumni and you graduate school? What are your top 3 things that you took away from going to school? So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys again next time.